Let's now look at a couple of ways in which we can write more complex conditions. Sometimes we want to write code that does something if a condition is true and something else if the condition is false. So in Python, we write if condition colon, and then we write one or more statements. These statements will only be executed if the condition is true. And by the way, if you ever find yourself in this case, you know for sure that the condition is true. That's the only way in which you can come into this block of code. So this block of code must be indented, and all the statements in here will only be executed precisely when this condition is true. On the other hand, if this condition is false, then we will go into what we call the else case. And once again, if the condition is false, we will come here, and if you find yourself here, it must be the case that the condition is false. Mathematicians like to say that we will execute this code if and only if the condition is true, and we will execute this code if and only if the condition is false. What about this code? This code that is de-indented to be at the same level as the if and the else, well, that code will be executed always. As long as we don't have any return statements that are getting us out of a function, we will finally come to this region of the code. So if the condition is true, we will do the if case, and then we will jump past the else and come to whatever code is over here. And if the condition is false, we will skip past the if case and do the else case and then continue down here. Sometimes we have more than one condition to deal with. And in that case, we use this if-elif construct. Elif is short for else if. So we could have written an else within which we could have put a condition. That would have been a nested if condition, and that is possible, but it tends to be harder to read. So if we have a series of conditions to check like this, condition 1, condition 2, and so on, we typically prefer this if-elif structure. By the way, you could have had more than one elif, and you could even have had a final else case to handle every other possibility. So the way we would read this is, if condition 1 is true, then we're definitely going to go into the if case. And by the way, if we're in this if case 1, that means condition 1 is true. So once again, we will go to if case 1 if and only if condition 1 is true. And then after we have finished with if case 1, we will jump to whatever is after the else case, whatever is de-indented. The only time we can get to if case 2 is if condition 1 is false and condition 1 is true. So it's important to remember that when we sequence these conditions like this, they are checked in the order that is given. The first condition that is true is the one we will execute. We will only do condition 2 if condition 1 is false. So having checked that condition 1 is false, we then come to check condition 2, and if that is true, we will do if case 2. And of course, we will only do the else case if none of the preceding checks are true. So as you can imagine, code that uses if and else, and code that uses if-elif, and code that has if conditions buried within other if conditions or nested within other if conditions can be very hard to read. We will say that that code has very complex control flow. And when we call functions, when we give functions some data, that can lead to complex data flow. Sometimes that complexity is absolutely necessary to solve the complex problem we have in mind. But sometimes that complexity is not necessary. And once again, in the spirit of designing easy to read, well-crafted functions, we can simplify poorly written code to use simpler logic, simpler control flow, and simpler data flow. We will introduce in our next lecture the use of Python Tutor to trace through code, and we will see how control and data flow through complex code. And we will try and simplify some of the code that we have written. For now, I would like you to critique this function. As you can see from the well-chosen name and the doc string and the doc tests, this function is trying to calculate the median of 3 given integers. If you are not sure what median means, please look up the definition online. But hopefully, the name and these examples will help.